Welcome to Reach Your Dew Point, the podcast that explores what it takes to make your next move, whether you're thinking about starting a business, changing careers, or achieving something you've been dreaming about. I'm your host, Roy Atkinson. We'll be sharing stories from many who have found their own dew point and eliminated the barriers to their success. Listen up. You'll learn something that will help you reach your dew point. My guest for this episode of Reach Your Dew Point is Pam Wyess. Pam works with new and seasoned managers who want to learn how to make the role of leader easier. Passionate about leadership and connections, she shares simple ways to enhance leaders' mental fitness and agility so they can consistently do their best work with less overwhelm and more satisfaction. In addition to her background as police dispatcher, police officer, sergeant, and lieutenant, she's earned degrees in communication and administration and holds several coaching and training certifications. Hailing from the Mitten State, that's Michigan, she's a fan of the Detroit Tigers, all dogs, and trips to Dairy Queen. You can learn more about her at workplaceresults.com. Pam, it is so great to have you on the podcast today.
Well, thanks, Roy. It's a pleasure to be here, too. Thanks for inviting me.
I've known you virtually for quite a long time, and then we finally actually did get a chance to meet in person. And we had a lovely meal in Detroit.
We did.
With my brother and my sister-in-law, which was very nice.
It was.
So I want to know more about your career decisions and how you came to them, which of course is the basic subject of this podcast. So what was your first dew point, that decision point that you came to? When did it happen and how did it happen?
Well, in thinking about this, I mean, I've had a major real job dew point and career change, but in preparing for this, I realized that I had some dew points along the way in my first career. So just thinking about that, in my senior year at the University of Michigan, in finals week, I started my first real job with the Ann Arbor Police Department. So I didn't know what I wanted to do coming out of college. I had a degree in communications. I had really no aspirations one way or the other. I didn't have very much role modeling. My parents were blue collar type family, came out of a middle class family, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So when a friend said, hey, there's an opening in the communications department at the police department, which was essentially dispatch, I thought, well, I have a degree in communications, so I'll go do that. That was really one of those things. So I think, like, as I just reflect back on it, one of my early dew points was just, when you don't know, try something. So it was it sounds like a good match, and nothing bad is going to come from it. There was an opportunity for me to just take an opportunity. But there was probably some thought process behind it. It fit my values. I thought about the idea of wanting to help people or being of service. It seemed like being part of a team would be something that happened in a police department. And it seemed like meaningful work. So there was a bit of a process behind all of it. But in the end, it was, well, that sounds good. Let me try it. So it was my first exposure to, let me just give it a whirl without doing too much risk analysis or back and forth decision. It was just, let me go. And I applied for the job and I got it and I loved it. So coming into that, I think I spent a couple of years in that position and I loved the job, loved the work. And I got to the point where I thought I'd really like to be the person on the other side, not just sending the help, but being the person who was there. So I had a second dew point moment, I think, where I could really start thinking about, do I want to make this a career, as opposed to here's a job that I'm going to do for a little while until I decide what I want to do. So I decided to apply to be a police officer at that point. And that, I think, had a little bit more thought process behind it, and had a couple of different thought processes behind it through different categories of thinking, because I not only had to think about, can I do this job? Do I want to do this job? But can I do this job? And then what it was I leaving behind, and what did that mean? My sense of loyalty, what I really learned in my couple of years working with the dispatch team was that I really did like being part of a team. And so even though I would be part of a team, the bigger team, leaving my friends in dispatch, leaving work I was really sure about and I was really good at, that was a big decision to take and to move on. So I took the leap, and I went and applied for officer, and actually had a few ups and downs in that application process, but eventually made the leap, went to the police academy, came out of it, and started work as an officer with that department, the same department where I was a dispatcher. So I was familiar with the people. I was familiar with the processes, the policies. So what I learned partially was that something that was good for me was that I preferred some sense of familiarity along the way. But it was a great job choice for me in that.
Interesting that, and this is the first chat that I've had on this line that talked about job change. It was a significant change going from dispatch to being an officer, but at the same time, while you were in dispatch, you had a window into what the roles of the officers were, the kinds of things that they were being assigned to do, being called to do. So you had a big window into the job before you decided to make the leap, which is a big advantage in some ways, I suppose, to what most of us have, because most of us read a job description and go through an interview process without really knowing the organization very well, unless we're interviewing for a different position within the organization, which essentially is what you were doing. It's just a bigger step.
True.
But that's pretty interesting. And did that factor in? I mean, were you thinking through some of the things that officers were doing that you were involved from the dispatch side, that kind of did that play into the attraction for the officer role, or how did you think about that?
Well, I think I did. For those who are familiar with the DISC, the DISC, I rank a high S, which is somebody who doesn't like a lot of change or wants to know about change before it comes. So I think that's one of the things that actually did play in. That's a good insight, Roy. And I think that knowing what I was up against and what kinds of things would be expected of me, and even just listening to how officers handled calls or the kinds of things they did. And we were fortunate to have a ride-along program, I think partially so that as dispatchers, we would understand the reasons for why officers were asking for certain types of information, or just to remind us about the importance of gathering all information and making sure to relay it to the officers on the street. So we would have a ride-along program maybe it was quarterly or a couple times a year. So we would get to see what the officers saw. And so it was very interesting to be able to go from one side of the radio to the other and to hear what it's like, for instance, when you don't have a whole lot of information and you're going in more or less blind to a call. And sometimes that was because you just couldn't extract the information from the caller, and other times it was because either the chaos or just somebody didn't do as good a job maybe as one would hope to get more information, maybe didn't ask the right questions or enough questions to get along. But you really got the experience of what is it like to be called to some kind of, a fight here where you just really don't have too much else, or a fight here and here's the number of people, here's what's going on, here's the injuries, here's, all the various factors that go into it. It's a very different mindset prep to go into it. And it's a very different response perhaps that you might do going into it. Once you get there, you have to deal with it no matter what. But it certainly was nice to have all that information. So I really took that to heart and remembered some of those things going in, not to make assumptions about what people meant, and to get as much detail as I could about the work.
Good lessons there.
Very good.
And how long were you in that position as a police officer? What was your rank and so forth? And did you have any specialization within that field?
So So I was a dispatcher for about 2.5, close to 3 years, and then an officer for another 11. And so a total of about 14 years of service. And in my police career, I was promoted twice. So about as soon as I was able to go for promotion to sergeant, I did. And then I kind of did the same thing going for lieutenant. So when I resigned my position, I left as a lieutenant and had a fairly wide range of experience, some lots of patrol, some administrative, and some specialized. When I was still an officer, we had a unit that worked. We were a college town and had a nice downtown district. And as with a lot of downtown districts, you have the people coming, and then you might have petty crime or just things that don't make it as nice for people to want to come to the downtown area. So we were I was put into a unit that was designed to try to look for the little pockets of trouble and to get to know the people that were down there, not only the citizens that were coming, but to know that the kid, a lot of it was just troubled youth that didn't know any better or, didn't have any other outlet. So we actually, while sometimes people think about, oh, you're just here to kind of come and arrest or come and bother, we really got to know a lot of the young people in the downtown area, and we got to know a little bit about who they were, what they were about. And there was actually a lot of kind of social services going on there from the police officer side of things, where we'd get to know them, we'd give them resources or talk to them about their interests, and often acting as sometimes that parental role that they didn't have in their life, or whether it was parental or just an adult who cared about them. So we were able to, I think, make a difference there for a lot of them.
Now, I happen to know that you didn't stay there beyond that period of time, because when I met you, I didn't know that you had been a police officer until much later on.
Yeah.
But and that was it. It was a wonderful surprise to find out that was in your background. But so now we're years into your tenure in the police department. Your rank as lieutenant. What are you thinking about, and what's next for Pam, and how did you start to put that together?
So part of that transition phase actually started shortly before I became lieutenant, and while I was a sergeant, there was an opportunities for some advanced training. So I went to Louisville, Kentucky for 3 months, to the University of Louisville, where it was, police administration type of training. So it's a feather in your cap, so to speak, but it also has become required, I think, for a lot of police chief or higher level police jobs to have this kind of training. So I was fortunate to meet the love of my life there, who was a sergeant in the Anchorage, Alaska Police Department. So things worked out well for us there. That I just wanted to study and be a good student, but somehow Cupid showed up and wouldn't let go. So we ended up having that relationship. My now husband went home and retired actually from his position, came to Michigan because I was still newer in my roles. But part of that transition was, now he's in Michigan, so he's not as well networked and other things going on. So what will you do now that you're here? It's not as easy to just kind of walk into a police chief job, even though you had that excellent school behind you and that credential. So we decided to start a training and development company. And I said, well, I can do that part-time, and I've still got quite a ways to go in my career, but I can help you along the way. And then when I retire, someday in the future on a Friday, then I'll start full-time on a Monday, because that's how I thought business worked. And then that's what we'll do. So we started that company. And I think there were two things that fed into my transition period and my dew point moments. And so one was, so we're doing that. And of course, we're not business people. So we really have, I'll just say, basically no idea what we're doing. We just know that what we're offering is good and people need it. So we started out doing customer service training in dealing with difficult people, because we knew how to de-escalate, and we knew how to build trust with people and build rapport and help them cooperate with you. And so that seemed to transfer to the business world, where others would want to do that and have that kind of relationship with their customers or their internal coworkers that they might consider customers as well. We were doing that part-time, and I had bid on an opportunity to do customer service training, and it turned out that job was, I said, well, I think you need more than that. After talking to them, doing a little bit of a needs analysis, I didn't know much, but I knew at least to do that. And I made it a bigger proposal than what they were anticipating, but they said, that's great, we'll take it. And then I said, oh, okay, great. And then I kind of jokingly said to my husband, well, if I could do this, if they take this, then I could just quit. And so they did. And I was like, well, now am I supposed to actually do that? Am I supposed to leave my job and do this? I mean, we could do it while I'm still working, but it's planted the seed. Like, if I could do this once, I could do it again. So that started me thinking about that. And then the second thing that happened was, while I was still working, that we went to a funeral for a coworker's mom. And you, as your friends and coworkers come together, and you give your condolences and your sympathies, and you are there just being present for the person who's lost his loved one. You start talking and you're saying, boy, this really makes you realize life is short, and, how important your parents are, and how much time you should spend with them makes you want to go home and hug your own parents. And that kind of planted the seed for me as an only child of only children. So really my family is very small, my immediate family. I just thought, I really need to be thinking about spending more time with my folks. I mean, it was a little bit of an ongoing thought process, but that was the one of the things that got me thinking about, I wonder if I was doing my own thing, if I would have more time to spend with my folks, I'd have more flexibility, certainly. So those are a couple of things that I just checked into, I'll say, my values about what was important to me, and what was becoming more important was my family and the time with my parents, the recognition about that, and then my desire to still, how can I help? How can I serve? But just in a different way. This is a skill set I know that I have, and I know I can teach others. I'm a good teacher and coach. So I thought, I wonder if I could blend those two and make this leap and just go. So my feeling from my original dew point of, like, when I thought I'll just take this job in dispatch, I'll see how it goes, kind of matches everything. I really just overlaid that again. It was like, what's the worst that, if it doesn't work, I'll just go back to, I won't be able to just roll back in or go get my job again, but I'll find something else I love to do. I know that, but that's really in the very small fraction of things that are going to happen. I think we can make this go. So it was really just finding the inner courage to say, it's time. It's time. I've done well here. I've loved every minute of it. And I think I can do good over here. And it'll give me some extra things that I'm looking for as well.
And you anticipated one of my questions, which is about whether or not people have a plan B when they reach that dew point. And you didn't so much have a plan B as you had the confidence that plan B would be there if you needed it. Do I have that about right?
That's exactly right. I had no doubt. I'll find something else I love to do, but I really think this is going to be it.
That tells me that deep within you're a pretty confident person, even though it may seem to you, and probably not to others, but to you at times, that you're not very self-confident. That strikes me as being something that a very self-confident person would say, hey, if this doesn't work out, I know I'll find something else. I'll be able to do something else. Where does that confidence come from? Was that part of your upbringing as an only child? Were you encouraged a lot in that regard, or where did that courage come from, and that self-reliance?
This is a really great question, Roy. And I think part of that is, so because I often, it's not that I don't have those pockets of self-doubt. I often had to fight those off, but there was certainly, I just learned to remember my abilities. So kind of when the scary voice comes in about, are you going to be able to do this? Well, I've done it plenty of times before. I know I can do this. And so I would just kind of review back on the things I had been successful on, and even the things that I hadn't been successful with. I could think about either how I'm still alive after, like, oh, this didn't work out, or I didn't get that, but I put in for a handful of positions, lateral movements, or like, here's a special assignment that I didn't get. I'm still here afterwards. The world did not fold in and crumble and die. So just remembering sometimes that you have been successful before, and looking for, whether it's skill sets, ideas and insights, or just the confidence that you had to do something before. Can I draw on that again and overlay it over here on what I'm doing now? And to be okay with, well, wherever it takes me, I think I'm going to make it work, but I'm okay if I'll figure the plan B when it gets here.
Now you established this business. You started with the customer service training, but I know that it's bigger than that. And so tell me more about what it is that you're doing now and what your plans are in continuing that, or is there something else that's brewing up that we don't know about yet?
Well, that's kind of a fun question too. So primarily right now, I have done a lot and morphed, as I mentioned, into more of the leadership development and self-development piece, because I think a lot of times even leadership and management training is around here's 5 ways to do this or 6 ways to do that, and that's all great. But I often feel like I can teach a SEAL 5 things to do, but it's about who you're being as a person and how you're interacting with other people and how you see yourself and how you see the other person in that interaction. So it's really about the conversations that you have and your comfort, your recognition of what it means to be in a leadership role, and your comfort in just talking factually, but still having that kindness and compassion in that, and letting go of judgment along the way. So I primarily while I work with executives and higher level people, my sweet spot is with first line and mid-level managers to help them get real clear on what it means to be a leader and to get comfortable in their role as that, and then to build their competence and confidence in doing the things that are necessary, and helping them really leave the legacy that they want to do, and to make leadership and managing others and managing the work of whatever role they're in a lot easier. So shifting mindsets and helping people think differently about themselves, about other people, and about what it is they're doing here in this world.
And I'm guessing that's pretty rewarding work. But before you respond to that, I just want to clarify, when you say you could train a SEAL to do it, you're referring to the animal, not the Navy dude, right?
That is correct. Although maybe I could do that too, but good
Thinking
point.
you probably could. That's great. So you're continuing down the road that you're on, and you're finding it rewarding.
I am, and I've had I'll say a slight dew point shift here as I've taken on just with the pandemic, of course, that's shifted everything to virtual, because most of my work, even my coaching work, was done in person. And so, because I love connecting, and I think that's a great way to connect. But the pandemic forced us into doing things virtually, whether by Zoom or just on a phone call or whatever, but primarily by Zoom. And so I'm learning more about the virtual world and connecting this way and helping people and coaching by this way and doing more group coaching so that I can reach more people at a time, and then they can build community, because I think that's the other piece that's missing out here, is where our world gets so fragmented in so many different ways for so many different reasons. And I think the more we can come together as a community and look for those things where we're alike, or we can see other human beings not because they're struggling that makes us happy, but they're in the struggle too. And then how do we cheer for each other and support each other and be happy for their wins and allow other people to support us as well. So I think building community, whether it's in real time or certainly online. So I'm working on building a membership group and doing some group coaching right now. And I think that this is just a fabulous way to bring us back as the pandemic is, I'll say, winding down, or we're starting to see people go back to work and looking for hybrids. I think people are still going to be looking for, where's my group? Where's my tribe is kind of overused, but where are the people that I can connect to and whatnot. So I'm here to help facilitate that.
Just to recap a little bit here, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to me that a lot of what you're doing now goes right back to that first decision that you made at university to be in communications, because what you're talking about, it sounds like to me, is all about communication. It's how we relate to each other. It's how we get together and share information, whether that be virtual or in person with each other. Do I have it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Your initial dew point way back there in at the university has played into various aspects of your career, but that's the common thread that goes through it, is being able to share information and and help other people share information. That's awesome.
It really has been. It's been a great ride so far, and I'm looking forward to what's next. I'm really excited about the work I'm doing and eager to help other people get comfortable again and make their connections in the way that's meaningful to them.
Pam, it has been an absolute delight to have this chat with you today. So glad you were able to come on the podcast. Thanks.
Thank you, Roy. It's been a pleasure.
Again, if you'd like to know more about Pam Wyess, head over to workplaceresults.com. We'll see you real soon on another episode of Reach Your Dew Point.